Welcome to a demonstration of the Buddhist Translators Workbench, or BTW. BTW is a tool for studying how words are used in different contexts, periods, and languages. As its name suggests, it has been developed primarily to meet the needs of translators of Buddhist texts. However, it is rapidly evolving into a versatile tool that can be applied to any text and assist in the investigation of a variety of research questions related to the use of words. In brief, BTW enables users to annotate the meaning of words in different contexts and then use these annotations for linguistic comparisons. The focus of the comparison depends on the field and research project of the user. A translator may use BTW to compare the meanings and applications of an expression in the source and target language. A social scientist may wish to use BTW to explore how different populations use a cluster of near synonymous words. A historical semanticist can employ BTW to investigate how the use of the same cluster of words changed over time. No matter what one's specific goal is, lexical research invariably involves a set of required steps. One needs to establish which word or group of words to study and which sources one wants to use for the study, collect instances of the chosen words in the chosen sources, and study the meaning and use of the words in the passages thus collected. BTW helps researchers to systematize these steps and make the most of them. This video will demonstrate the application of BTW for the analysis and translation of a cluster of Sanskrit words in Buddhist literature. Those who wish to see how BTW can be used to study English words are invited to view the demo based on our case study of the use of migrant, immigrant, and refugee in the British press and readers' comments. Let's imagine that we are translating a Buddhist text that frequently employs the verb clip and its cognates vclip and pariclip, and we're not quite sure what the difference between them is. Sometimes they may seem to be used interchangeably or to be listed together without any explicit indication of their meaning. Or perhaps one verb is used to gloss the other in a commentary, and we need to determine whether the commentary is introducing a new concept or simply paraphrasing its source. To translate these words successfully, we must first determine how they differ from each other in Sanskrit, and then find English renditions that capture their differences and similarities, or perhaps one that retains their vagueness. BTW can help us with this. First, we need to tell the software which language we are working on and what the primary focus of our lexical investigation is. We want to work with Sanskrit and primarily research clip. We also want to study how vclip and pariclip are used, and in order to spot semantic difference among these set of verbs, we may wish to also explore the nominal forms kalpana, vikalpa, and parikalpa. Perhaps we may want to take into account Tibetan translations as well to help us determine the relationship between clip and its cognate. However, we will not demonstrate multilingual research in this demo. Next, we start collecting citations that exemplify how our words are used in Sanskrit. To this end, we search the texts we want to draw on. We may, for example, query a selection of texts from the Gretel database to find instantiations of clip and its cognates. Once we find a citation that we want to use in our study, we can copy or input it into BTW and attach metadata to it, including which one of our words it pertains to, which text it comes from, and so on. Thus we create a personal database of citations for our lexical study. Once we have collected all the citations that we want to study, the software groups together citations with similar attributes. In this case, source type such as sutra, shastra, or literary text, and word. This organized database offers users an entry point to annotate texts and explore them further. Let's begin the annotation process from citations illustrating the use of clip in sutras. Here is a listing of all the citations in this collection. Let's begin annotating. In this citation, you might notice that the meaning of clip in this passage is determined by its object, shayam, as the syntam says clip means to lie down. Let's then start our linguistic annotation by marking that shayam is the object of clip. Next, let's mark up the syntactic role of kalpayati. Once we have made these connections, we can proceed to annotate the semantic value that clip takes in this passage. To do so, we will assign to this instance of clip a semantic category taken from the historical thesaurus. Let's pause for a moment and look at the historical thesaurus to understand how BTW uses its semantic categories. Like any thesaurus, the historical thesaurus lists words by the concept they express. What makes it unique are its scale and the level of specificity of its conceptual categorization. The historical thesaurus arranges all the words contained in the Oxford English Dictionary in a fine-grained conceptual taxonomy that ranges from very general semantic fields such as the external world to increasingly specific semantic categories such as movement, motion in a certain direction, move across, break through a barrier. BTW allows us to assign any of these semantic categories to the words we wish to study, regardless of which language they belong to. Since the conceptual configuration of different languages always differs, BTW also offers the possibility of customizing the semantic categories of the historical thesaurus to describe the meaning of words that might have an equivalent in English. Thus, we can represent the conceptual structure of virtually any language without the need of creating an entirely new conceptual taxonomy from scratch. Let's return to our example and see how we can use the historical thesaurus category through BTW to represent the meaning of clip in our citations. We have established that in this passage, clip takes Shyam as its object and acquired the overall meaning of lying down. Let's open the semantic field workbench to retrieve a semantic category corresponding to this meaning in the historical thesaurus. From this workspace, we can query the historical thesaurus, and we can also map semantic fields on the conceptual taxonomy. Let's start by searching the thesaurus for fields that contain the English words lie down or recline. This Boolean search should ensure that we find a semantic category that matches the meaning of clip in our citation. Our search returns several results. Now we need to choose those that better fit our instantiation of clip. Our citation is about the postures that people believe the Buddha assumes, so we should probably discard semantic categories that involve going to bed, giving up, or being lazy. Rather, we may choose fields pertaining to place hold body in a relaxed posture upon something, and having a specific position arrangement, lie down, recline. Both of these semantic fields seem to closely identify the meaning of kalpayati in this citation, so let's add them to our list for further review. Once we have done this, we can go back to our citation and, in our annotation pane, decide that we indeed want to assign the second semantic field to kalpayati. Marking the meaning of clip in this sentence has been relatively easy because the meaning of Shyam is very clear and corresponds well to the concept expressed in English by the verb lie down. In many cases, though, annotating the semantic value of clip is not so straightforward. Our next citations prove more challenging. Here, kalpayanti is listed with vikalpayanti. Neither verb takes an object, and their meaning is not easy to distinguish. Let's start by noting that clip and vclip co-occur in this passage. We highlight kalpayati, select listed with, and link it to vclip. Let's imagine that we have annotated the meaning of kalpayati here and proceed to annotate vikalpayati. To this end, we open the semantic field workbench and search for semantic categories that fit the meaning of vikalpayati in this passage. Since the verb is rather vague in this context, we'll start by searching for some frequent meanings of vclip such as conceptualize, discriminate, categorize. We use the Boolean operator OR to retrieve categories that match any of our keywords, and we get 8 results. Form judgment, decide, discern, discriminate, and judge, determine, discern, recognize as different may be good fits, so let's add them to our list for later review. Perhaps perceive, conceive form in the mind is a good candidate to describe the meaning of vclip in our passage, but we are not quite sure. Let's explore it further by visualizing its specific position in the historical thesaurus taxonomy and by looking at the words that it includes. Here we see that this category is sandwiched between intuition and imagination and has categories such as occur to as children. English words that express this concept include think, suppose, form, and so on. We also note that we have already used this category to annotate clip. If we want to differentiate vclip from clip, we may decide that vclip denotes a specific aspect of conceived form in the mind, that is a form of mental categorization. Since the historical thesaurus does not have a category for mental categorization, we may want to create a custom category to represent our interpretation for the meaning of vclip in our passage. We can do so by combining conceived form in the mind with arrange by kind. Now we have created a custom field that we can find in my fields. If we think this describes our verb well, we can add it to our list and return to the citation collection. From here we decide that form, judgment, decide, discern, discriminate, and our combined field capture the semantic meaning of our word best. However, we really do not have enough context to be certain about the specific semantic nuance of our verb here. So we marked the semantic field as uncertain. BTW offers the option of marking several types of uncertainty. In this case, uncertainty is due to vagueness, and we select the corresponding option. Now let's move along to a point where we have annotated all of our citations to see how the annotations we have made can help us in our translation and lexical study. Let's go back to the citation we have just marked up. The gray highlighting signals that we have already annotated that word. You may notice that besides clip and vclip, the adjective kalpika is also highlighted. This is because this passage revolves around a wordplay between the words kalpayati, vikalpayati, and kalpikaha. This pun poses a challenge to translators, as it hinges on an assonance that is difficult to recreate in English, that is, similar sounds of verbs kalpayati and vikalpayati, which denote the activity of conceptualization, and the adjective kalpika, which means appropriate or decorous. Let's see how the concerted use of our semantic annotations in the content of the historical thesaurus can help us work on an English rendition of this pun. Let's first use the semantic field workbench to check which semantic fields we've assigned to these words in this passage. As expected, some fields pertain to the sphere of mind, while others pertain to the fields of propriety, decorum, and morality. We need to find an English word that matches as many of these fields as possible. To find it, let's select all of our semantic fields and ask the software which English words hit the most of these semantic fields in the historical thesaurus. Here, we see a list of all the current English words that the historical thesaurus lists under each of our fields, and highlighted words occur in multiple fields. Among them, form occurs in the majority of our fields, and hits both the semantic categories pertaining to the mind and those pertaining to decorum. This suggests that the word form could prove a useful starting point for the rendition of the Sanskrit pun. Of course, the reason why form hits so many of the relevant semantic fields is that it has many senses in English. Using BTW, we can visualize the full semantic spectrum of the English form. We can also visually compare it to the semantic spectrum of clip or any other Sanskrit word that we have annotated using the historical thesaurus categories. We can see that while the senses of form far exceed those expressed by clip, there is some significant overlap between the semantic spectra of the two words. This confirms that we can indeed use the word form as a launchpad for our translation. For example, we could, following Luis Gomez's lead, translate the pun by rendering clip and vclip with to form notions and conceptualizations, and kalpika with proper form. The same comparative feature can be applied to Sanskrit words. Not only can we compare the meanings of two Sanskrit words with one another, we can also compare the semantic value of words to which they are syntactically related. In the case of clip and vclip, for example, we can use our linguistic annotations to compare the meaning of the objects they take. Let's select which citations we wish to draw on and select as comparison clip and vclip. Let's now choose as the focus of our comparison the objects of these two verbs. Here you can see that there is overlap between these two semantic fields, recognition and idea, notion, concept. If we wish to view the citations this information comes from, we can click on one of the objects of these verbs and see the associated passage. Let's revisit the one that we marked earlier, Shyam. To help us better spot patterns in the use of verbs in our corpus, BTW also offers the possibility to distill our annotations into graphs. Let's have a look at our data visualization tools and walk through a few examples. If we are interested in visualizing the frequency of meaning attestations, Our best option is to choose a bar chart. We decide which variables to include or exclude using the Tools menu. Let's choose to visualize the frequency of the meanings that the verb clip expresses in our sources and to filter the meanings by text and genre, or source type. In this chart, you can compare the semantic field frequency in which clip occurs. You can see the specific texts in which they appear, or visualize the source type based on color. We can also decide to visualize the meanings we were uncertain of during the annotation process. Here, the gradient signals uncertainty. If we wish to generate a visual comparison between the use of a word in two texts, we may choose the sunburst chart. Let's draw on the citations for Vikalpa in Shastra literature and choose to limit the data visualization to the Abhidharmakosha and Bodhisattva Bhumi. Let's visualize all the variables accessible to us. In this visualization, we can see the meanings that Vikalpa has in the Abhidharmakosha in yellow and those that it expresses in the Bodhisattva Bhumi in blue. The field highlighted in green corresponds to the meanings shared between the two texts. So far, we have visualized only the meaning of words in texts. If we want to visualize more complex relations between words, we can generate a network map from the data contained in our annotations. Network maps can show syntactic relationships between words, as well as hermeneutical relationships, displaying how words in source texts have been glossed in commentary. Here is a network chart illustrating how instances of Viklip and Vikalpa in the Mula Madhyamakara are glossed by Chandrakirti. An interactive version of this network chart is available on our website. BTW is an ongoing project, and many of the features we have demonstrated here have yet to be developed. We would be grateful if you could take the time to offer us feedback so that we may develop a resource that matches your translation and lexical research needs.